Hi, I'm Dean Bushmiller from Expanding Security, and this is Penetration Testing Tools and Techniques. If you're not seeing the full version of this, you can go to expandingsecurity.com where you can get quizzes, glossaries, readings, and this mind map with all the dynamic links in it. And it is important this time that you get the dynamic links for all of the tools that are in it. Use or consumption of this material by AI is expressly forbidden. So let's get started. When I deal with penetration testing, and I don't do as many as I used to, but I still love doing them, it's always evolving. It's always something different, and I really kind of love it. Now, the term here, it says tools and techniques. So I'm going to break this down and be really simple about it. Tools, very simple. You can get a bunch of other tools, other places. I'll show you those later on. You go to Kali Tools. Why? Because the Kali instance has almost every single tool that you're ever going to need to do a penetration test. Now, there are AI tools outside of that. We'll get to those. We'll talk about that in the second section, but this is really where all the tools are. And I have a whole section within this document that I'll show you later on that's got all of the tools that I use that are the general tools that everybody uses. Okay, so that's the tools. What about the techniques? Oh, it's kind of process. There's a lot of process involved in this, and that process breaks down into a couple of different chunks here. First, for the organization, they say, hey, we've got some risky activities here. Let's assess our risk. We'll identify our assets. We'll define a scope of the assets that we're going to let you test against, Dean. We're going to determine the impact, and I might do that with them. I might say, hey, well, look, this is a really sensitive asset. Do you think we could go ahead and make a virtual copy of it or a cloud copy of it or P2V, whatever it is? But determine the impact on that so that we can adjust for that and then rank those threats in order of what should I test first, because they don't want me to test forever and they're paying me by the day. So therefore they're going to rank those threats and they're going to say, these are the important things that we want you to focus in on. And that gives me a scope to work from. From then on out, when I am working with that organization, I'm capturing all of the evidence for the report. That's the goal. And there are certain ways that you can do that. I talk about those in my CEH class, all the techniques that go around that. That's not really what we're talking about here. So my next job with that organization is to discover the vulnerabilities. Usually this starts off with some form of scanning with Nmap or another tool like that. We may even be said, okay, we're just going to look at this one application. Dean, it's that application. It's on that IP address. It's got this URL. That's the one we want you to go after. And so then I audit the application and I go through every single dialog box, every single place within that, and I see what activities I can perform, what activities I should be able to perform, and can I get away with murder in some cases. So I discover the vulnerabilities. Next, I exploit those vulnerabilities in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a setup of services that are there. I'll gain access to the individual box, whether that's through the normal credentials that they give me, or whether I take a set of normal credentials and escalate myself, or whether I acquire those credentials on my own through some sort of password guessing. Once I get onto the box at a lower level, then I'm going to escalate my privileges. How am I going to do that? I'm going to find some other vulnerability on the box that, if we were looking at it purely from the outside, would be a low consequence vulnerability. Like if you were looking at the National Vulnerability Database and you're looking at the CVSS scores, they would say, hey, we've got these high priority things that we want you to look at. They're 8, 9s, 10s, but then what they don't do is they don't patch the 4s and the 5s. And so I'll go in and I'll look for the things that they're susceptible to at those lower levels that will allow me to escalate my privileges while I'm on the box. So I'll find one way in, authenticate as user, as guest. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, here's a user account, here's a guest account, here's an administrator account. See if you can go from one to the other and escalate your privileges up the chain until you can gain full system access, along with looking for all the vulnerabilities that are there. Once I get onto one machine, that may not be the ultimate target machine. I may say I'm sitting on this host right here, or they give me access to like a mobile device, And they take that mobile device and they put it inside of that network and they say, what can you do from here? Who can you get to next? I will leverage the privileges that I have on that particular device and the privileges that that device has within that network to go after other things inside of that network. So I'll pivot my way through that network, finding other hosts to ultimately get to what they've told me to get. Now, on that device or other devices, I may want to hold tight. I may want to capture control over that device and capture control over another device, and that's called persistence. I will look for my ability to maintain that device, go after other devices, unless it's a red team attack, and we'll talk about that later on. At the end, what I'm going to do is report my findings. They will have said, maybe at the very beginning in the scope, this is the asset, tell us everything that's bad about this asset that you can find. Or they may say, we want you to find that one file, that one thing that's really important to us. It has these characteristics. That's usually like a capture the flag that you do on the outside. When you report your findings, you document what bugs you found. You classify the severity of those things according to an external dispassionate view. And then you set your recommendations in place. Now remember, it's not our job to fix things. What I like to say as a penetration tester is I am a seagull. I fly down, I steal your French fries, I kick the hot dog out of your hand, and I fly away. Oh, and then I fly back and I crap all over everything and I leave. That's my job as a penetration tester. So maybe if you're internal, you'll do something a little bit different from that. But that's the basic concept of tools and techniques for penetration testing. Now in this AI section, I've got a link, and normally you don't see me have any links inside the presentations. I did that already once with the Kaylee tools. Now I want to look at another set of tools, and this is a search on GitHub. And so you can click this link and that's fine. You can just go into github.com/search !Q and then type in penetration testing with the spaces inside of it. And you'll get this. Why? Why do we care about this? Agents, large language models, and other, we'll call it AI technologies that are evolving at this point, speed up the work of penetration testing. Now, here's the problem. Some of these people in here, well, let's go down to this one right here. These people don't speak the same language that I do. I don't know what any of this stuff says. I mean, maybe I do. I can get the translation on it. Some of these people may not be very nice to me. They may not like me. They may take a model and adjust that model from Hugging Face and insert evil inside of that model so that when I use it to do penetration testing against my client or internally for my organization, it does something else that I don't know. So I say use these to speed yourself up. But two things. One, if you're going to do this in a high security environment, you should rip this thing apart to absolute zero, see how they built it and build your own, or go through all the validation steps to make sure all these tools are as you expect. And then the other thing that I would do, which I do for all of my tests, is I do a forensics copy of everything that I performed against that asset. That means that if I've got an LLM here, or I've got an agent right here that's got an LLM in it, what I will do is I will create a tunnel that goes to that particular asset on the other side. But before it gets there, I have an interceptor that captures all of the packets that are coming from my attacking workstation to that victim on the other side. So I have only one path to and from, and that path has a listening agent on it. So I think these things are great. I think I've used a couple of them and they speed me up incredibly. A lot of my process it's gone from, a couple of hours now down to a couple of minutes to get me my information. But also remember, these tools they don't necessarily consider the delicate nature of the asset that you may be attacking. So you have to be very careful with all of the steps and make sure that there is what we call a human in the loop for all of these activities. So you've got a lot more discussion and a lot more discovery and a lot more work to do when you choose these AI tools. But I think it's worth the advantage if you're willing to go through and look at all of that process and protect yourself for getting yourself up to speed. So I hope you'll join me for the entire presentation.